we are receiving.
Do you want this tip over that name tag?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, everyone's good to go? Is there any other late items to add to the agenda?
No, the same camera.
Okay, great.
Nothing any matter.
Okay, great. So we'll call the meeting to order February 22nd, 2022 at 7:01 p.m. We'll do our land acknowledgement, which is, as we gather here today, we acknowledge that we are here on Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors in this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. So just to confirm, there's no late items, so we'll just need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor McPhail. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion's carried. We'll move on to adoption of the minutes. The first one being 3.1, regular meeting minutes on February 8th.
There's a correction in that one. Resolution 10.5 about municipal revenue sharing. What's recorded here doesn't reflect what that motion actually was.
Okay. Revenue sharing has been filed. What should it be?
It was that the town confirmed the responses for declaration of eligibility for municipal revenue sharing, and that the town has submitted 2020 audited financial statement, has submitted waterworks reporting to the Ministry of Government Relations, is considered in good standing in regards to education property tax, has a council procedure bylaw, has an employee code of conduct, and that elected had filed their public disclosure statements, and that administration be directed to file the declaration.
Got it?
Yeah, we'll look back on the tape, but if you can send it, that would be great.
Okay, so as with the one correction, is there any other corrections or anything that anyone sees? Okay, so we'll just, do we just motion it with that, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, with the correction, I'll move
With
to
the
adopt.
amendment.
Does anybody want to motion that?
I'll move.
Okay, seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Reese. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Move on to a motion to approve the minutes on February 14th for the special meeting.
Move to approve.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Hibisky. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Move on to delegations. Do we have Dr. Kaketla on the line yet? Okay, so what time did we tell her today? 7. Okay. All right. Well, we'll come back because she is a busy person, so she may just be running a little bit late. We'll move on to 5.1.1, which is the Northern Saskatchewan Environment Quality Committee, and so I do see the fact sheet. And so as far as this goes, do they need a nomination for this?
They don't need, they would like.
They would like. Okay.
If I could speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm actually on the Environmental Quality Committee. I was appointed to that committee right at the beginning, and not one person has got a hold of me. I didn't even know it still existed. Because I did talk to Warren Kelly, who was the president at one point, and he said, what, that's still up and running? To me.
I think now that they're gearing up for the uranium to pick up again, I think the importance of that, because if they were shut down, there was no monitoring, but now they're going to be renewing licenses and those kinds of things. So now there's a need to have that committee. So if Ryan is on there, and he's willing to stay on there, I'd support him continuing with that.
Yeah, Ryan, is that something that you'd want to continue if it starts up again?
Yeah, for sure, because that is, one of the committees that I actually did choose to sit on. Like, we all got to choose committees, and that was one of them for me, and I'd be more than willing to sit on it.
Okay. Great, does anybody have opposition to that?
No, I'm in favor of that. They do also request an alternate.
Okay, is anybody?
Yeah, I was just
sorry,
gonna say, if
Yeah.
somebody is willing to do an alternate,
Does anybody wanna volunteer as an alternate?
I'd be an alternate.
Yeah?
Sure.
Okay. Anybody have any opposition to that?
I think Abby put up her hand as well.
Oh, sorry, hey Abby, are you interested in that as well?
No, not necessarily. I'm trying to remember because I believe we chose an at-large community member for that. I don't know if it was for a specific reason, and that's why Warren Kelly has been the town of Launch's nominee for a long time and representative. So I don't know if the administration wants to double check that. Does the NCQC want a community member and a council member, or if we have any clarification on that?
Okay. Well, I think for what the ask is, I think we'll, if everyone's okay, with having Councillor Budgetary as the nominee, and then as a what's the word?
Alternate.
I want to say backup, but alternate as Councillor.
Alternate.
Thank you, Councillor Radisky. We'll just need a motion on the table for that.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. We move on to committee reports, starting with the Woodlands and Waterways Regional Visitor Center Board. There is meeting minutes from the 8th and from the 15th. Ryan, was there, oh no, I see that you weren't able to make the 8th. Is there...
And the 15th I was there.
Okay, is there anything of specificity that you want to add to what's been presented?
We just kind of cleared up. I made sure the payment went through and it did in that. Apologize for for our mistake, and we moved on.
Okay,
Yeah, everything's in the minute. I attended both meetings. Everything is in the minutes. I guess to note was that we do need to renew in some way that agreement as a tri-community. That is still in the works, so there is a new agreement going to be drafted, and I guess we'll update when that is ready to be shared.
okay, great. So I think it's just a receive and file. Motion.
Well,
Oh,
I
sorry.
guess I'll just add one other thing to it. So what it did bring to the committee there is, we now know that, and whatever this committee decides, it could be 3 or 5 years, that agreement has to be looked at, right? So there was fault on that part as well, because it had been 12 years since it was, last looked at. So we made sure that was known as well. And so it'll be taken care of every 3 years now, or 4, and that was it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Budgetary.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment, I think that that's the appropriate table for that, redoing the agreement, at the board level and taking it out to the communities. I think that in terms of politics, I think that's the best way to do it, as opposed to, us trying to bring it forward. And it's important that it happens. It, unfortunately, it didn't go according to plan every 3 years, but I think it's been recognized now, and I'm glad it's moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So the next meeting date is April 28th, and I'm assuming that will be presented at that time to bring back to the council tables.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so just a motion to receive and file.
I'll move.
Okay, seconder?
I'll second it if you would.
Okay, great. Motion by Councillor Budgetary, seconded by Councillor Radisky. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carried. We move on to Fire Advisory Board meetings, January 24th and February 7th. Councillors, I guess either Clausen or McPhail, do you guys want to add anything to what's been presented?
Basically from what you can see in the minutes here, there has been pretty extensive work done into rebuilding the, governance board and structure of the fire hall. We've brought in a third-party consultant to be able to do that. This person has also been tasked with working on our emergency measures plan, and in that same time has looked at the restructuring here. In the February 7th meeting, you'll see that there's option 3 that was being put forward for recommendation, which is basically a renewed fire servicing agreement between all three communities. That was passed 4-2, I believe, if we look in the minutes. There are some minor adjustments to the final document, so rather than send it out to the entire councils as, you know, part and parcel of new things coming, what we wanted to do was send a full package, that way everyone was able to review it, give their thoughts, maybe reach out to some of the board members. Matt and I are board members on behalf of the town. If you had any questions, you can certainly call us on that. Basically what we're going to see here soon, I would say either next meeting or the meeting thereafter, we'll have a renewed fire servicing agreement, as well as terms of reference and a policy manual that we can have for every board member on the fire services board, and that, like I said, be brought forward for council approval. As a flag to administration, we will probably want the fire servicing agreement reviewed by the town legal representation. So I don't know if we want to put that little asterisk on it, that we might need that service in the coming month or two. And outside of that, it's been a really good fire servicing board. We're really working together, and Keaton and the staff and fire team over there is doing a hell of a good job. So very proud of the folks there.
Just one thing to add, one thing that we were looking at or had discussed was to include not only Laurentian and Lac La Ronge Indian Band, but the Northern Administrative District in that agreement. So those options are being looked at right now.
Okay, thank you. Do you guys have any other questions, comments? Okay, so just need a motion to receive and file.
So move.
Seconder? Okay, motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Hardisky. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. We move on to the CEO Administration Report 6.2.1, which is the tracker staff report, as presented from, I'm assuming Heidi, you're in charge of this document, right? Anything or any questions? Does anybody have any questions for Heidi about this document? I really like this, and I hope that it continues, so thank you. I really appreciate it. It really keeps us on track of what's being done. So.
I'll put in the good word for it.
Thank you. So with no questions for Heidi, just need to receive and file.
I'll move to receive and file as presented.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor Budgetary. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Movement to 2022 service request for quote 6.2.2. The cost comparison for between 2021 and 2022 for the RFQ. Is this, like, as far as this cost comparison goes, is that just for?
That's just for information, just for a summary of all of them.
Oh,
and then
I see.
listing below is each of the services.
Excellent. Okay, I see that. So we can move right on to 6.2.2.1, which is the staff report for janitorial services, which is awarding the 2022 janitorial services RFQ. Does anybody have any questions for Ken?
On this matter, I'm going to declare a conflict of interest.
Okay. Oh, and I think Dr. Coquetla is on there, so we'll bring her on after this. Does anybody have any questions about the awarding of this going to, where are we here? To Northway Janitorial Services for $46,913.04.
I'll move to award this contract to Northway Janitorial Service.
Okay, seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Reese. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. We'll move to bring Dr. Coquetla in, and we'll go back to the delegation. Yeah, thank you.
She should be on the line there.
Okay. Dr. Coquetla, are you there?
I am.
Hi.
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you can. So thank you for joining us tonight. You have majority of the councillors in the chamber. Councillor Budgetary and Councillor Bashara are on Zoom land there as well. So thank you again for speaking to us. I requested that you be here today just to give us an update on the COVID restrictions and just try to get a bigger picture from the local standpoint. Obviously, there's a lot of changes that are happening or have happened and are going to be happening. And I thought it would be prudent that you speak on the locality of our area and what your thoughts are moving forward.
Yeah, that sounds good. Mayor, I'm just going to try and get my video on here. I'm struggling a little bit, but if you just give me 1 second, I will get that done and we'll get going.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are we able to see if we can, oh, I think that she's in the waiting room again. Oh. Do you want to see if you can prompt asking her to turn on her video? There we are.
Yeah. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, Mayor, it kicked me out.
That's
when I was
all
trying
good.
to adjust my settings.
All good.
Okay. I just want to check that you guys can hear me okay.
Yeah, everything's good.
Okay, perfect. And first of all, Mayor, I'd like to thank you and Council for the opportunity to be able to connect with you this evening. I think this is a timely opportunity given the transition that we're in with the next phase of the pandemic response across our province. And so what I hope to share is just a few kind of key points in terms of where we at overall in the north and try and put it in context with the rest of the province, looking at our monitoring indicators, and then walk away with some key messages. But I also wanted to pose at the end of my update a question about whether or not Mayor and Council would be interested in potentially a pilot program that could look at L'Orange being part of a wastewater surveillance program. But I'm not anticipating or expecting a response this evening in relation to that, but I thought it would be something to leave with you for further discussion, and we could reconnect about it at a later stage. So overall, I think it's no secret that it was announced recently by the province that we're nearing the end of our public health order. It's anticipated that it's going to be lifted just after midnight, leading into the 28th of February there. And so at that point, there will no longer be a legal requirement for people to wear masks in indoor public spaces, as well as a requirement for people to isolate as after they have tested positive for COVID-19. The implications of that are yet to be evident, obviously, but I think we have a responsibility, not just as public health professionals, but also as leaders within the community at your table, to see what it is that's within our authority to ensure that the citizens of our communities are kept safe, because the pandemic is not over yet. So when we look at our most recent combined surveillance indicators in the province of Saskatchewan, it shows that we're potentially around the peak activity in terms of hospitalization rates, our infection rates, but also we are continuing to see a worrisome trend in terms of particular areas that I'm going to highlight. One, I wanted to make sure that it's clear that in the north historically, and we've seen this throughout the pandemic, that even if the rest of the province peaks earlier, we're always a little bit behind. So about, we're estimating 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks after, but we're estimating around 2 to 3 weeks later. So that's why we've earlier on, a few weeks ago, put in a travel advisory because at that point we had seen that travel down south was a risk factor for transmission in our communities. The other thing too is that we've seen that the test positivity rate has been quite high in the province of Saskatchewan overall, but also even in the north we're seeing the same trend. So even though there was a significant change in the approach that the province has taken in terms of prioritizing who gets a PCR test, even the ones that we're testing in the north, even though it's a smaller number, they're still coming back. As of last week, we had a high positivity rate of over 25%, I believe, across the far north. So that's pretty significant, and that tells us that we're missing quite a large number of active infections out there that are not getting picked up by PCR testing. However, we know that we're balancing that with the widespread use of rapid antigen tests that's now quite obvious within not just the Laurentian area, but in other places as well, but we're definitely not picking those up in terms of reporting them amongst our numbers. The hospitalization rates is another indicator that has been a bit worrisome from our side. Even though our ICU numbers overall in the province have remained pretty stable compared to where we were with the Delta virus variant, we are seeing quite a high number of hospitalizations right across the province, and the north has been disproportionately impacted in that as well. So even though our numbers in the far north are small, we're definitely seeing that. And who is impacted in terms of hospitalizations? That's pretty, I mean, it tells the story of Omicron. I think we're seeing by far the unvaccinated people being the ones who end up in hospital at a far greater rate than vaccinated people. And then as well, the older population over the age of 70. But we are seeing a younger population, 30s and 40s, ending up in hospital as well, which is really concerning. From the data that we've seen, and given the timing of the lifting of the public health order, we do anticipate that we're going to continue seeing additional case activity, and that in turn is going to have an impact on hospital capacity within the province, as well as including in the north. So we're bracing ourselves for that, and certainly the modeling data that so far has been pretty spot on that has been shared with us in public health predicts a similar trend as well. And so what is it that we can do right now? I think certainly remaining cautious, and I think continuing to emphasize the message that the pandemic is definitely not over, and that we still have a responsibility both as individuals but as a collective to make sure that we get through the pandemic in a safe way. I've also wanted to highlight the mortality rate, because I think this has been a significant update that you would have heard about or seen in the provincial epidemiology update that was released last week Thursday. There was a significant jump in the number of deaths reported in comparison. Essentially, it was double what was seen in the preceding week, with 42 deaths reported. And so, I mean, in the context of everything else, that's pretty significant. And I think the Premier even commented that they're closely monitoring that as well. I wanted to just focus a bit on the north in terms of where we're at in terms of our vaccination rates. We know that still remains the best tool that we have as one of the layers of protection, but we've really seen quite a significant decline in the uptake of first doses that we saw go down quite significantly over the past little while. And even the booster doses, second doses and booster dose uptake has pretty, it's plateaued, and I think has remained pretty stagnant right now. And that's worrying, because we know we have significant evidence that that third dose really makes a difference for those 12 plus who are now eligible for it. In La Ronge, as of the latest data that I have from today, we're sitting at 88% for 2 doses, and so that's the tri-community area. That's pretty good. We're around the top 4 in terms of our groupings of northern communities across the north, so That's encouraging. However, in terms of those third doses, we're just under 30% of eligible people who have received those booster doses, so that's not encouraging. And also when we look at where the lag is, we really had, I think, a disappointing uptake for those kids who are 5 and older, the 5 to 11s. I think that was impacted by a number of barriers, including a requirement for parents to be present when they're vaccinated. But I think also the misinformation and hesitancy from parents and caregivers has really impacted uptake in that younger age group, and that's unfortunate because then we know, even from the data that was released from the province last week, kids are still getting impacted by COVID-19, and so they get infected and then are able to pass it on to others, including parents, and then obviously that has a subsequent effect on workplaces and other places as well. One additional monitoring indicator that we've kept a close eye on is the wastewater surveillance. In the province right now, the large urban areas of Regina and Saskatoon, as well as Prince Albert and North Battleford, have been engaged in that type of monitoring, and it's really been helpful as kind of a key indicator to give us a heads up about what's happening in the community, because it has the ability to pick up virus before it becomes evident, or even before people become symptomatic. So that's been a pretty, I think, helpful indicator, especially now when we're seeing we don't have as much access to daily indicators as it was earlier on in the pandemic. So that's one thing that we can talk about as well towards the end. So what should we do as a community to keep our community members safe as we transition over the next few weeks? I mentioned earlier about individual and collective responsibility to keep our community safe, and I know you're all committed to that. I think the key message here, as you're communicating to residents, is that the pandemic is not over. People are tired and people are exhausted and they want it to be over, but it's not. And I think people should, essentially the message from my office is, until you hear the word from public health that it's over, you should assume that it's circulating within your communities. And so all of the measures that we've been encouraging need to continue. And I talked about vaccination being a critical tool. The use of rapid antigen tests should really be continued to be encouraged. I think Mayor and Council and the town have, I think, a unique opportunity as well, as a distribution area perhaps, but also as part of the messaging to encourage at least weekly, ideally more than once a week, testing for families, including, especially I think, emphasizing for those that have younger children in the household or those who are vulnerable, like the elderly population or immunocompromised. Consistent mask use should continue. I don't think at this point we should be debating the benefits of mask use. I have said this to our school divisions as well, and we'll continue to emphasize that message, even though it won't be mandatory within our school divisions for them to use masks. There has been communication that they should remain mask-friendly environments, and so strongly encouraging mask use. There's clear evidence about the benefits of it, not just in the context of COVID-19, but also in the context of reduction of disease, including influenza viruses, rhinoviruses, and others which are currently circulating, although to a lower extent because of the protections that we have because of masks and other measures. And of course, the other measures, I think it goes without saying, the hand washing, the avoiding large crowds, those types of things also we're encouraging to continue in place, regardless of whether or not the public health order will be in place. The other thing too, I think that would be key as we go through this, is the availability of treatments now that we have, including in our health center here locally. We now have Paxlovid, which is the oral antiviral medication, as well as monoclonal antibodies, which are provided as well. It seems to me, and I think to my colleagues, that I don't think Northern people are aware that these are now as widely available as they are. And I think people lose that window of opportunity when they do test positive within those first 5 days to be able to access that treatment that reduces the length of disease and the severity of disease. So we're trying to do a lot more during this transition phase to really amplify that message. And so if you're able to do that as well, that would be helpful. But we're also advocating from a public health perspective that Northern and Indigenous people be prioritized in terms of eligibility, because we know that the North has had disproportionate severe outcomes as a result of COVID-19. The other key area of work that's happening is an update on the long-term care family presence guidelines. I think there's recognition that the most vulnerable within our society have been really impacted by the disconnect between the regular family presence and presence of friends, and so that needs to be carefully balanced with the fact that we know that our long-term care facilities are really having a tough time, including right now with infection. I just got off a week of call, and I was also covering another region. And the activity that's happening within long-term care facilities in relation to COVID-19 is quite remarkable. And even though we were really carefully balancing, how do we safely lift these measures to ensure that we support the mental health and physical well-being of our elders, while ensuring that they're kept safe is really a challenging conversation. But we're anticipating that there will be an announcement coming pretty quick from the province and the Saskatchewan Health Authority about how that's going to go. The other thing too that I wanted to highlight, and it's not to end on a depressing note, but I think it's a reality that even though we'll get through the pandemic, and it's a guarantee we will, some of us are going to fare worse than others, and the North is going to end up being worse off than other places, even with the upcoming surge that we anticipate. We already, of the latest data, and I looked at the numbers again today, we have 3 times the case rate, we have 4 times the hospitalization rate, and almost 6 times the death rate compared to the rest of the province. And those are quite significant numbers for Indigenous and Northern people in comparison to the rest of the Saskatchewan. So I think it's obvious that there's going to need to be a lot of healing and rebuilding and advocacy that happens as we transition out of the pandemic. And we, in public health, and certainly my office and myself and Dr. Sokol are committed to continue working with Mayor and Council, whether it's in provision of data to support whatever advocacy efforts you will be exploring as a result of this, or any other capacity that you would need us to support you in. We would be happy to do that. Finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this wastewater surveillance process as a potential for the RONJ to be a part of. We've done just some initial, not so much discussions, but just kind of initially finding out what that whole process would entail, so that we can be ready to present it to Mayor and Council when that's appropriate. Right now, that the wastewater surveillance monitoring is done through, essentially as kind of research through University of Saskatchewan, and at this point they don't have the capacity to take on more pilot sites or northern remote sites. I think they have limited funding and capacity as well, but there is a conversation currently provincially that's looking at exploring different avenues of funding that could lead to the monitoring and the testing being done through a provincial lab versus through academic research or the university. So if that works out, I think that would be an excellent opportunity for the town to potentially consider being part of that process. It might be a helpful indicator to have handy that would not necessarily be limited in terms of access by either the health authority or government. So it's certainly something that's there that we can explore, but I didn't want to go too far with it before I had gotten just even some initial indication of whether or not there would be an interest in further pursuing that. I think with that, Mayor, I'll probably bring it to a close. I'm quite happy at this point to receive any comments and address any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Kuketla tonight? Dr. Kuketla, really quick. At this point, well, I actually have two questions. One, were Northern MHOs, were you guys consulted in the decision making for removing some of these protocols that are now being removed?
In terms of the public health order being lifted, Mayor Tisha?
That's correct, yeah.
That was a government decision that had nothing to do with Northern mental health officers. We, Dr. Sobel and myself, did raise concerns through our Chief Medical Health Officer about the timing of the lifting. We've made that very obvious, it's not a secret. Every week we provide written recommendations to the medical health officer, and I've been very clear. And it wasn't just us on the municipal side. First Nations partners through medical health officer at METHA expressed the same concerns that were aligned with ours, and they provided feedback that they had received through their consultations with the chiefs. And I think that the engagement that we were having with all municipal leaders actually came in handy, because we were trying to get feedback on our weekly reports, but that sort of coincided with this announcement for some of the other communities. I know with you, Mayor, and the leadership of Orange, that was a little bit earlier in the process, but we heard quite clearly the concerns from other Northern leaders about the timing, but unfortunately that was not, I think, well, I don't want to say considered, because I don't know what finally went into the decision-making process for the policymakers and senior government officials, but that we would have hoped for a different timing, I think, to allow for the North to peak, and then at least not be caught while we're at the peak activity.
And then sorry, my second question really quick. Your recommendation to us today, as far as what we can do to, because I know you talked about the 4 weeks, we're sort of 4 weeks behind, 4 weeks behind. What would your recommendation be to Mayor and Council today to keep our residents safe, and aside from the messaging that I'd like to see that come over in an email if you can, just so that we can continue messaging. Obviously you're the experts in this situation, but what would your recommendations be to us today, so that we, because I think about our healthcare professionals at this point, and the overburden that's happening on that. I know people are tired, I get that, but at the same time we have people that are even more tired who are trying to keep people safe. So what would your recommendation be to us today?
Yeah, and first I am planning to send something in writing, Mayor. That's one of the next steps. There will be some formal communication going out to municipal leaders that include clear recommendations from myself and Dr. Sobel as regional medical health officers. I think that what I asserted earlier about people should not assume that the pandemic is over because February 28th public health orders are lifted. I think that's the first key message. The second key message is I think I would recommend that whatever you can do that's within your authority to maintain mask use within your facilities, I think that would be helpful. I'm not sure what has been communicated for municipalities in terms of what's within your authority and what isn't, but for town-owned facilities, I think that would make a huge difference. I did inquire with the Relations Office about what advice has been provided to municipalities. I said this was key, not just in terms of mask use, but I said in terms of any proof of vaccination mandates that they would like to maintain within your facilities, what your authority would be. I don't know if that guidance has been provided, Mayor, but I think that would be helpful to explore if it hasn't. At least they should remain, at least your facilities should remain mask friendly, knowing that, you know, not everybody will comply, but I think it sets the tone, and that's really critical in slowing down infection. The other thing too is if we could, I mean, as leaders within the community, I think your attitude over the next little while, and you setting an example in terms, whether it's mask use or whether it's, you know, encouraging rapid antigen testing, or whether it's amplifying that message about the availability of oral therapeutics and antibody treatment. I think all of those will really make a difference, and I think it would still serve as a reminder that we're not done yet with the pandemic. And then finally, I think that message of you know, increasing our vaccination rates as much as possible, even though people have sort of lost interest. Anything that we can do as yourself as leadership to encourage that continued uptake, particularly for those younger age groups, those parents who are still hesitant. I think at least we can get some traction there. I'm not sure about the older people. I'm not as optimistic, but I think we still have an opportunity to work and encourage with parents, whether it's, you know, at the library or other areas where Mayor and Council may have the avenue to amplify that message. That would be helpful.
Okay, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Dr. Gatlas tonight? Okay, thank you. I know we exhausted the time with this. I look forward to receiving that, and we'll pass it along to the rest of Council as well. I'm curious to get more information on the wastewater pilot too, and then we can bring that to Council and further discuss. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mayor. And before I sign off, I just wanted to thank you as well for acknowledging the role of healthcare workers in this pandemic. I know sometimes because this has gone on for so long, it's become a given that, you know, health professionals will do what they need to do. It has really been tough on our teams, and I've often wondered about what the impact is going to be on our ability to recruit and retain people in the north to maintain our critical infrastructure. And so I think maybe a final note to the residents of L'Orange would be, you know, let's be kind to our nurses, paramedics, everybody else who's doing this tough job, because really I think people have gone above and beyond, and sometimes the policies that have been decided upon have not always worked to support those healthcare workers, but we understand that these are tough decisions in the middle of a pandemic. So I wanted to thank you for acknowledging that work. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Thank you very much, and thank you and your team for everything you're doing, and we'll talk soon. Okay, thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, we're moving right back into it. We're going to 6.2.2, which is the bulk fuel staff report. And the consideration here is, or the recommendation is to move ahead with the RFQ for from Lake Country Co-op Association in the amount of 1.4168 per liter for diesel, 1.4337 per liter for gasoline, including the
I'll move to award bulk diesel to co-op at 1.4168 cents per liter, and to award bulk gasoline to Blue Wave at 1.4074 cents a liter.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Blue Wave is cheaper on the gas, so we may as well give them that.
Mm-hmm. Go half and half. Do we know what percentage, like what our consumption is for diesel and for regular fuel?
Approximately 60,000 to 30,000 liters, the report's out.
Is it? Okay. Okay, so like 30,000.
Can it be split that way?
Yeah, because further down on the card block one, the recommendation was the same, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Ken, are you on the line?
I see that.
I think he is.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Ken, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Just wondering if there was a reason why just it was all awarded to Lake Country and there just wasn't recommended for it to be split.
It wasn't in the past, so that's fine if council wishes to do it. It was all lumped together as one tender
Got it.
in town, in lot, so
Okay.
that's fine.
Got it.
I just did the estimates of what the total would be for estimated fuel.
Okay.
And that's what I recommended advice, so
Okay.
just going about the past.
Gotcha. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
No.
Okay, so we'll call the question. Sorry, go
One
ahead.
question. Did anybody check with TFA to see what kind of rates are available to the town? There's their bulk buying agency.
No, I did not.
Did they submit though? I mean, because
I'm just wondering if we could just defer the decision on this until we get some more information on that.
Well, it was a tender that had a closing date though.
Yeah.
For next year, maybe a person could, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because otherwise it just delays
Yeah.
us moving forward.
it would be unfair to the people that put in their tender on time, so.
Yeah.
But for next year, that could be
Yeah.
definitely a consideration, I would think.
Okay, so we'll call the question. So just to go with it again, so that's motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Budgetary. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion's carried. We move on to the card lock report as well, as this slowly comes along. And as recommended here, does anybody have any questions for Ken regarding this award?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor Clausen to award Lake Country Co-op Association for the amount of 1.4168 per litre, including applicable taxes, and regular gasoline awarded to Parkland Cooperation for the amount of 1.4074 per litre, including applicable taxes. Any further questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Move on to general maintenance. Staff report from Ken as well to award the
I'll
general.
move to award Kersinger Enterprises Inc. for the amount of $55.50 per hour.
Excellent. Seconder. So motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Hordisky. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Move on to the snow removal report. Ken, did you want to speak a little bit further about this, or does anybody have any questions for Ken?
I do. Is that the only company that put in a tender for this?
That's correct, yeah.
And is that equipment suitable, like the cat with the snow blade? Do we need a bucket as well, or is that included too, or?
Yeah, it would be, I didn't check, but the snow blade actually would be fine for an angle blade for those parking lots or whatever. It's probably as good or better. And what we changed in this one from previous request is if they're not available, we can move on and find somebody that is, because a lot of times it's a matter of timing, and so that's what's different from the last one, from the last year's tender where.
And was there any tender for removing, like for trucking or anything like that? Because we see a few local guys doing that from time to time, or that's just something that you call unless you need.
Here we have not done that in the past, that's what I was told, so no, there was nothing, no provisions for trucking in this tender. If we did, we'd probably go out and do like we do just for regular public works and solicited trucking and whatever the rate is at that time. So this is just for removal, pushing the snow off the rink and in the town lot.
Okay.
Is that something we can still do, is put a tender out even though it's not the same for trucking, or?
We could order at their discretion, I guess, too. Because it's not used that often, just kind of in a high level.
Ken, do you feel it's necessary to do an RFQ for that right now?
I'm sorry?
Do you feel it's necessary to add an RFQ for trucks?
I think because I've only been here for a while, but this winter obviously is an extreme one, and we have used trucking for probably a month, and I would think if that's extreme, I wouldn't think it'd be worthwhile to do an RFQ. I'd just be willing to go out and get who we need on a timely basis, because even snow removal is timely, and That's why we put that in the tender, although we remove snow quite often, but trucking, we wouldn't have to remove it that often, if at all. So I don't believe trucking would be something we'd have to worry about.
Okay, I'll move to award snow removal to Eagle Point Sales and Service.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Hibisky. Sorry, can you use that iPhone? And I think that's Abby, actually. Thanks, Amanda. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. We'll move on to the fire extinguisher service request for quotes. Anybody have any questions for Ken? So recommendation is to award for North Sask Fire in accordance with their bid submission.
I'll make that motion to award to North Sask Fire in accordance with their bid submission.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor Budgetary. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. We move on to septic. Sorry, my computer is a little slow today. So this is recommendation for the 2022 septic services RFQ be awarded to Eagle Point Sales and Service. Anybody have questions for Ken regarding this award?
I'll make the motion that 2022 septic services for March 1st to February 28th, 2023 be awarded to Eagle Point Sales and Service for their fee $157.50 for 3 tank pump outs at the airport terminal, $157.50 for 2 tank pump outs at the airport maintenance shop, $78.75 for each of the 2 tank pump outs at the town maintenance shop, $78.75 for 1 tank pump out at the regional fire hall. The emergency call out rate is $315 an hour. Hourly rate for call out standby services is $210 an hour, which includes applicable taxes for each fee.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor Budgetary. Any further comments? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. We'll move on to the municipal grant early approval.
I'll declare conflict on this one.
Okay. Okay, hi Connor. Did you want to add a little bit to this?
No, just noting that typically we would wait for the intake period to be over, but for this application in particular, it would give them 4 days from the end of this March intake period to run the event, which is not enough time to organize a dog sled team to come up to offer its services to the students of Churchill Community High School. So asking for council's approval to for the $5,000 to approve this grant application. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Connor, what is the amount for this intake? Is it 20,000 around that?
21,000.
21,000. Does anybody have any questions for Connor?
Is it fair to award something early without knowing what the other applications are gonna be, when it's gonna award 25% of the grant?
I agree. I'm in favor of that too. So, Connor, what is right now, with that being 25% of it, and we don't, we haven't obviously reached the cutoff date yet. We don't know what the total number of applicants are going to be. It does seem a bit strange that we would do an approval and then, because even though they've asked for 5,000, we don't know what else is coming in. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's not completely equitable for every other applicant here. It is important to note that if we do wait on this one until the intake period is over, then they essentially would not be eligible due to the way that the dates line up.
You gotta be careful to not set a precedent.
Mm-hmm. And how come they didn't apply for the one in the fall? Is this something that was new?
No, they did do it last year. They offered it to, I think, just over 100 students, but looking to bring up 2 teams this year to offer it to 550 students. I don't know exactly why they did not apply for the second intake of 2021.
Got it.
Yeah, I think we've got to stay equitable with this. We're giving away taxpayers' money for different community events, and I think we need to know all of the applicants before we make a decision on it, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I will make a motion to table item 6.2.3 to the municipal grant, first intake, 2022.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Councillor McPhail to table, seconded by Councillor Clausen. Any further comments, questions for?
So it's deferred till when?
Till all of the grant applications are in.
Okay. The only thing that I see, if that happens to be after March 22nd, 20 to 24th, basically they won't be able to do this at all. So I guess I can see the timing of it. You know.
But this is to double what they were doing last year. They're still doing it, but this is to make it bigger.
If the first meeting in March is going to be soon enough to do this, like if I'm not sure what the timing of the other applications are.
It ends March 18th.
That's correct, and yes, Councillor Clausen is correct there. That's sorry, yes, Councillor Clausen is correct.
Okay, so we'll call the question to table as motioned. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed say nay. Okay, the motion's carried. Thanks, Connor. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to 6.2.4, which is the staff report for the building and development permits. Mr. Bender, are you on the call? All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bender? Nope. Okay, so we just need to receive and file motion.
I so move.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Yeah.
Aye, all opposed say nay. Motion's carried. Thanks, Robbie. We move on to the Visitor Center Guide. Sorry, as this comes up. And Brianna, are you on the call?
Yes, Mayor Ritushnak, I am.
All right. Does anybody have any questions from what the report is presented from Brianna here? Is it something that we've always done? I mean, I know that there is that we've done partial.
So we've put forward a half-page ad and about 4 pages of information about Parks and Recreation for the past. I think it says 2 prints. So we've been doing this for a long time. I do know that because now with COVID, everything is now transitioning to digital. So a lot of people, meaning Tourism Saskatchewan, other individuals, organizations who put out visitor guides are significantly scaling back how many guides they put out, because we're transitioning, I believe, more to a digital focus. So this is why I put the recommendation that we do a full 1-page ad and 1 page of information, just basically outlining our town and Patterson Park, and sponsoring 4 pages of community information.
And just really quickly here, I see 1-page ad for 500 and there's 4 at 100. So should it be 900 plus GST, or is it just up to 1,000?
So it's a $500 ad. A one page of the information would be $100, and then 4 pages of community service information. So that's 5 information pages at $100.
Excellent.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Brianna?
I do. On those 4 pages, would the intention be to look at things like the Bora trails or like what we do at Patterson Park here as well? Like I know you'd mentioned Patterson Park, but is that like what's the other 4 pages like earmarked for? Just so I have an idea.
Oh, okay. So like what we will focus on for the town is just strictly our town amenities like our parks. So mainly focusing in on Patterson Park Beach and the disc golf course that is there and what we do for Patterson Park. The 4 pages that are sponsored are information that the community has, like phone numbers for community services, like where to go. I do believe it's basically just a regional information center for like where Eagle Point is, like what's the number for the senior center, who to get a hold of there, who to get like business directory stuff. That's what the sponsored pages are. It's not strictly just town stuff, it's a regional thing. Like that's what the sponsorship for the 4 pages are.
So you'll update the town of Orange contacts, correct?
So
Sorry,
basically,
Vivian, or Councillor,
I'm just looking at page 9 of 9. You'll update the town of Orange contact information accordingly?
oh yes.
Okay, just checking.
so basically the only change is we get a full page and we get 4, like in the past, 4 pages of information.
So actually, Councillor Horodesky, what I'm saying is we do 1 page of an ad and then 1 page of information that's town specific. So only 2 pages for the town. Does that make sense?
Well, we used to get a 3rd page. And with many other communities, you said, are opting out of this paper and going to digital forms of advertising. Why do we want to spend more on paper if more things are going to digital? Or if buying this, do we also get a digital version as well?
That I'm not sure if the visitor center is putting a digital copy of this out on. I don't even know. I don't believe they have a website, but they send this visitor guide to Waskesiu, the visitor center there, and the visitor center information center in Prince Albert. So it's basically if we still want to keep. We're in that transition zone, so I think it still is important to support this for at least 1 more season or 1 more print of it until we kind of get more digital. Like the town has digital assets, but the visitor center should start getting more digital assets.
Sorry, just really quick and then I'll come to you.
Okay, so just really basically is I've discussed it with Brianna when we had our meeting at the Visitor Information Center. There is no data. They've not kept any data on this sort of stuff. So we can't make an informed decision. So I've suggested that for next year, an actual strategic plan be put in place for visitor center type of marketing. We're kind of going into this blind. We don't know. And they don't distribute it down south. So it's kind of like preaching to the converted or preaching to people who already know what's here.
Mm-hmm.
But until we have all of that data, maybe move forward with it.
Right, Councillor Diskey.
Yeah, as much as things are going digital, when people are traveling and they go to stop in a visitor center, whether it's in Waskesiu or PA, there's still value to our community in terms of pick up a brochure, look at it. It's one of those things where you see it and it catches your eye and you learn a little bit about our community. And I think there's still a certain amount of value in supporting this, so I would put a motion that we contribute to this for this year and then evaluate it from here on in.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I'm not sure what council's feelings are, but I know that for the last 4 years we've contributed heavily to the development of border trails in our area. And I think it goes beyond play structures and sliding parks and whatnot that we have currently in here. If we can add that trail system to a full page ad, I know that anyone that's traveling north of Prince Albert is most likely looking for some sort of eco destination. And if they know that we have things like kick sleds and trail systems and all those kinds of things that they can go on, I think that's something we should definitely consider doing.
Oh, for sure.
And if it's $100 a page, I think $100 to advertise the thousands of dollars that we've spent to develop them, I think it's a shoe-in for the $100 to promote them in this.
Are these distributed to hotels and restaurants and those types of things as well, or just to these centers?
Yes, Councillor Clausen, they are. I will say, Councillor McPhail, Bora actually has their own ad in this visitor guide, so that is why I did not include them in town information. Does that, so I thought because they have their own ad, their own photos, their own kind of, this is who Bora is, I refrained from including them in our own, but I agree, Bora should be promoted.
And I think what Jordan brought up, I think is a good idea. I think we could look at if there's things that are, you know, if we have to expand to another page for $100 to get the message out about the trails or about something else that's not going to be covered in those 4 pages, you know, that's a small investment to get that message out.
And for me, even at $100, if it's a double whammy, I don't know where the Bora is going to show up in the book. If it's on page 55 and the town of Orange is in the first 3, to have that extra $100 so that when they're flipping through the town and they see everything that we have there, if they can say the town of Orange proudly sponsors the Bora Trails and puts the map right there, that's an easy way of bringing like that closely connected to the town of Orange. That if you want to go to these trails, like if you look at the Bora, I don't know what their ad looks like, but if it doesn't say, you know, proudly located in Treaty 6 territory in the town of Orange, then someone can look at that map and go, oh, those are awesome, where are they? Right? And that's why I'm saying if it's right in the town literature, then we know that the tourist is going to look at that and say, yes, this is where I want to go. So I don't know if you would consider that a friendly amendment to your motion, Councillor Husky, that I would like to add an additional sponsored page to promote the Bora trails in there.
I'd be acceptable to that, and also use our representatives on that board to get that message.
For that, yeah.
In terms of modifying the report.
Go ahead, Brianna.
I just want to make it clear that an ad is $500 and an information page is $100. So I just want to make that clear that council knows what they want to do, whether they invest $500 for an actual ad or $100 for an information page. I do know that Bora is already doing their information pages, so I'm not sure of the flow of the book yet. This is something that Jill Gracie is doing, so yeah.
So does that mean that we'd have to increase this to $1,500 then essentially? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Like I'm saying, if council chooses to do a Bora ad, then that would be an additional $500.
And if they're already paying for an ad, let's just leave it
That
as
is for a full page. If you want to do just a half page, that is $300.
they're already paying for one.
But is Bora doing an ad already in the visitor guide that you're aware?
Yes, Councillor Rose, from what I understand, they are. They're doing, there's information, I don't know the extent to what Bora is doing, but I know that they are going to be featured in the visitor guide.
Can we find out?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So are we wanting to, well, we have a motion on the table.
Well, like,
so
you know, if they're doing something, it might not be a big ad, it might be a small ad, and maybe we can partner and make a full page deal of it. It's going to make, you know, grab attention. You know, I'd leave that open in terms of negotiating these things. I just like to prove that we do it, and if we have to adjust the price based on what the final decision
If we allow the discretion of our staff to be able to do that, then we give authorization up to $1,500 to say, like, if Bora's just going to put in information, please call whatever, then fine. But if you would consider it friendly, if not, I will put the motion forward to amend it. But
No,
that we approve the visitors center guide contribution not to exceed what, $1,500 to support tourism in our
Are you okay
Canada
with that,
Ranch.
Councilor Diskey? Yeah. Okay. All right. And then, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Abby.
Thanks. Just a note with this discussion, and for, I guess it would be more of a note for future advertisements, because I think we're probably too late, but if staff could come with a proof of what the advertisement looks like that council could comment on, because I know that we're looking at last year's submissions, which stand for room for improvement. But I think if we focus on that foot that we're putting forward in advertisement in our copy, I think that would benefit the town a lot, and we would be able to then have a bit more consistent branding with what we've been developing and things like that. So knowing what kind of copy we're putting into a publication, I think is important for our decision making. But I understand that we're probably a little bit back on our heels this year and need to make a decision. So.
Okay, thank you. So the motion on the table is that we approve this up to 1,500 plus GST.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not quite understanding so if Bora's going to put in an ad, come to Orange and come and try out our trails, why are we putting, hey, come to Orange and come and check out our Bora trails? It's pretty much the same ad, except we're throwing out extra money for it.
If I can speak to that, because I believe I put that forward. The reason why I wanted that there is if Bora is only taking out an information page, or please contact Bora, but don't have enough money or resources to be able to put in a full page ad of their trails, that the town's motion would cover the authority to put that in there, but they not necessarily have to use it. That way it doesn't have to come back to council.
Okay, so if council's going to get kind of a proof from the Bora Association of what they'll be putting in, and then we can make a decision from there.
Allow our staff to make that decision.
Yeah. So Brianna would be the one who would look after that.
So if their ad says come to Orange, we don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. If it's detailed enough, I guess.
Well, yeah, if it just says come to Orange and check out our trails, but it doesn't have a map, I think that's the main thing. Is anyone traveling north of Prince Albert that might be getting this map wants to see that how many kilometers of trail we have here, and that's why I'm saying that we've given the authority to staff to do that, and that's the reason why.
Abby, do you have your? Oh no, it's gone. Okay, so the motion on the table reads that we approve up to 1,500 plus GST with allowing staff to make that decision. We'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, motion's carried. Thanks, Brianna. We move on to, sorry, this is you too. We move on to the 2022 Canada Day discussions. And this is just to, I think, one, develop a leadership roundtable, at least that's what you're recommending, correct, Brianna? And what's the plan is to go forward, considering what we did last year, what we're deciding to do more moving forward. So I think at this time kind of just open up the floor so that I think Brianna has a little clearer understanding of what we're doing moving forward. Is that kind of what you want from council today?
Right, so I just want to make sure that, what I put forward was I wanted to first introduce what the motion was that was made last year and just state that for future decision making. I know that La Current Indian Band is not making any decisions until March 8th. So if we want to kind of stick with, from what I understand from that previous motion, stick with it, we should then wait until after that date to make any choices on this date.
Does anybody have any thoughts?
Yep. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, it does. Does anybody have any thoughts?
I think we should wait and take direction from our neighbors who are primarily affected. by the tragedies that have occurred, and they do also impact us. So I think the respectful thing to do would be to wait and until they come to a decision, or we enter into conversations and come into a decision together.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one, you know, because I do like to acknowledge what's happened, but I also acknowledge that Canada Day has never been cancelled. You know, so we keep putting off the celebration of Canada Day? Can we not celebrate both? You know?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I think council really needs to look at that. You know, do we hold off the parade and fireworks for another year?
Right, and Brianna, just for point of information, you're also working on a grant as well, correct, for potential Canada Day celebrations?
Well, so that grant actually was not for Canada Day celebrations. It was to commemorate the Tri community coming together for the COVID restriction and emergency, the declaration of a state of emergency, and just how we've been strung together as a Tri community in crisis.
Got it.
So what I'm putting forward is you can make your decision as to, yes, we're gonna have a Canada Day celebration or not, or wait and see what is, we don't know what Lac Orange and Niman is gonna say. They have not discussed that yet. So do we wait and see and get direction from Lac Orange and Niman, or do we make the decision to have Canada Day celebrations?
Okay, so just so you didn't tie that grant into strictly Canada Day celebrations. Okay, that's
No,
good.
this is completely separate. That grant is gonna be for the September long weekend.
Okay.
We wanted it to be separate.
Great. I just wanted to just clarify that. Go ahead, Councillor Disky.
I would like to see us go ahead with Canada Day, and in terms of what happened with last year, I think we could incorporate some type of a recognition or ceremony or whatever, but still we need to do the parade. We need to get the kids involved. It's an important event for us as Canadians. I don't think we need to separate people. I think we need to bring people together, especially after the 2 years of COVID. I think it's important that we come together as a tri-community and celebrate what we have as a country here. And that's my stance on it.
I agree with that, Joe. As long as I can remember, Canada Day celebrations in La Ronge have been a very family-friendly event. It's one of the few events that's hosted in the town that is extremely family-orientated. It's very nice to see all sorts of families and different friends and groups going down to enjoy this, and especially the children's, the parade and the children's festival and all those events, which are they're just super good, and they're great for community building and bringing us all together. The Canadian government has done and continues to do hurtful things that have caused divisiveness within our country, and that's not right. I'm very, very against what some things that they've done, but that doesn't affect that we're all Canadian. It doesn't matter our ethnicity or social economic status. It doesn't matter. We're all Canadian, and I think we need to celebrate that. Canadians come together.
So there's a couple of conversations at the table. So there's one just to go ahead with the Canada Day celebrations. The other one is to wait and listen to our Lac Orange Indian Band. Don't know the proper word for that, but so does someone want to throw a motion on the table?
I'll put a motion on the table that the town of La Ronge host Canada Day celebrations, including parade and fireworks and children's festival. Further, that we invite neighboring communities and community groups to plan and participate in the event to encompass a culturally appropriate Canada Day celebration.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Does anybody have further comments, questions, concerns? Okay, we'll call a question. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Nay.
Amanda, did you get that?
Okay, the motion is carried. Thanks, Brianna. Okay, we move on to financial budgetary control reports. Starting first with the report for 7.1. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks. You can move on once.
Yeah, okay. So there's the check registry and also bank reconciliations. Does anybody have any questions about any of those? So just need a motion to receive and file.
So move.
Seconder.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Battery. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Okay, the motion's carried. Move on to motions 8.1, which is the municipal revenue sharing. Sorry, excuse me. Trevor, do you want to give us an update on where we're at with that?
Well, we basically got everything completed on our checklist that we had to do. The only problem is we didn't actually word everything properly when we sent out all of our paperwork in. What it's supposed to say is basically that the motion is basically that everyone's looked it over and verified that all the items on that checklist have been completed. And I mean, I can verify that everything on there is done. I've checked everything. I've called the government, made sure that they have all of our old reports. So I can guarantee that all that information is correct.
So the motion that was amended from last meeting should have covered all of that?
It just, yeah, it should.
Because they went through all the specific
think
points, like there's 6
There's a
specific
report to
points.
come, and I think you've checked off everything on that report, so I would assume those all would be all the requirements that.
Yeah, and you are right, like it was discussed that everything was there, but just the way that the paperwork was worded, that it just didn't cover everything, so the government wasn't as happy with everything there.
They
So-
wanted it worded a very specific way, which
Yeah,
we overworded it. I guess is the easiest way to put it.
So are we still getting, we still, I mean, in layman's terms, we're still getting this and this is still going through, or we've been denied it?
no, it'll
Okay.
still go through, I've been told, so.
Got it.
They just said, just redo it and everything will be fine.
Okay.
So what's the specific wording that we need?
What's right there?
The council has confirmed the responses given in declaration of eligibility and met reporting requirements for municipal revenue sharing grant.
Also moved.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Councillor McPhail, seconded by Councillor Reese. All in favor say aye.
That
Aye.
is what was moved last meeting. So.
Yeah. All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Okay, we move on to new business discussion items. So SAS Power easement request. Robbie, are you there? Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bender?
No, I'll move to approve the motion.
I'll
I'll
second that.
second.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Reese. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. We move on to the retail store permit for Red's Cannabis. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Bender?
How many cannabis stores are municipalities allowed to have, like based on population? Is there a ratio or no?
That's why I opened now.
No? Okay.
I'll move to table this decision and ask administration for more information. I do believe part of the alcohol strategy policy and bylaws that were put in place limit the amount that the town would allow for both alcohol serving areas and or establishments and cannabis.
That's Robbie's raising his hand.
Yeah, that's why we put in as long as it meets all provincial regulations.
Not that I know of, as far as I'm aware of. I mean, zoning wise and building wise and permit wise, we don't regulate the numbers of cannabis stores in the town. It was originally regulated by the SLGA to how many licenses were issued, but then they removed that regulation, and basically from the way Red's Cannabis talked to me is that you have to ask permission first before you could have another store, cannabis store. But I wasn't too fully sure. I mean, Saskatoon has lots of cannabis stores. I don't think they have regulations,
But that was something that
I don't know the alcohol strategy you've had.
Yeah, and that's why I asked for table this and to check that information, because I do believe that was in that policy, our own policy, and that was supported by the Saskatchewan government.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just gonna get a seconder really quick and then we
Okay.
can further discuss. So
Okay.
seconder to the tabling.
I'll second that, and then I have some other questions
Yeah,
I'd
go
like to
ahead.
add. So Robbie, they speak of in item 10 hiring local employees, so if you can find out what the projected plan is of how many jobs this will create in the community would be number one. And then number two, they also talk about giving back to the community. I'd like for you to ask some tangibles around that.
Right now, they're just they're for initial stages of the SLGA.
Mhm.
They don't even have a building established or where they're going to go. But basically, they don't want to go through the whole process of applying for the SLGA if the town is not interested in having them. I mean, we could. I don't know if they have all the business plans in place at this time. But I can inquire.
We'll go to Councillor Diskey and then Ryan, I'll come to you next.
I think, this is the early stages of, trying to set up a business in our community. I really not going to stand in the way of a new business, if it's gonna employ some people. I don't think it's gonna, the impact of it, whether there's one business or two, is going to, be that negative on our community, and I don't see where we can legally stand in the way of that other than, because we've already got that one type of business, really another one, I wouldn't like to see us stand against it, put it that way.
Just 1 sec, Robbie. I'm gonna go to Councillor Pedri and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Rodisky. This is an opportunity for new business to, come into the community. I don't know how many liquor stores are here in town. So to allow one more, pot shop, I don't see that as being a big deal. They got different hours. They run during the day, and partway into the evening. And it could bring jobs to the community. So I think it's a great idea. Plus, allowing kind of a monopoly for one business in the community, I don't think is a great idea either.
And I'd agree with you in that having a monopoly is not the best thing for competition. Yeah, that's where I stand on that. Mr. Bender, go ahead.
I was just going to say the only thing we regulate right now is only the distances of daycares. We don't regulate in our zoning bylaws or any kind of policies. We don't regulate the number of cannabis stores. And I have a question for Councillor Clausen there. In regards to your alcohol strategy, is that a town policy or is that a regional strategy?
No,
it was calling policies.
It was a town policy that was adopted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I'm not opposed to new businesses in town, absolutely. But I want to make sure that it does follow policy that's already in place.
And I'd just like to add, I mean, once they do if they do go, if council is in favor of it, they will have to still submit an application for discretionary use. Right now they're regulated in the C1 zoning district. So I mean, there's a lot of checks and balances after the fact.
Okay, great. So the motion on the table is to table, the motion is to table for further information. We'll call a question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Abby, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Sorry, I just wasn't sure if I saw what you voted on there. Are you yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay, so the motion is carried to table. We'll move on to 10 point. Sorry,
He has a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, you said you want to table it for more information. We go over what information council's requiring so we can go back to them?
Yeah, for sure. Councillor Clausen, do you just want to
To ensure that it followed the regulations set out when we adopted the alcohol policy.
Oh, just the alcohol policy, okay.
Yeah, my question
There was a point in there about retail locations for alcohol and cannabis dispensaries.
My question is it tabled to the next meeting or at what point is it tabled?
That's a good question. I mean,
it would be to the next.
Yeah, I think this is possible to do the next meeting. Hey.
Can we have the whole discuss? Just basically checking the policy.
Yeah.
We could forward the policy to like, oh yeah. definitely
And
compliance.
were there any other things that,
No, not if it's just preliminary stages.
okay,
I
great,
just have concerns around another venue selling. As an educator for years, we pushed, marijuana is a drug, shouldn't be used, blah, blah. And now it's legal, and I understand that and respect that it's used for medicinal purposes, and it helps a lot of people, and that's fantastic, that's great. I just don't like the commercialization of it. With along the same lines, I don't agree with the number of liquor establishments downtown either, but can't do anything with those. So if I can do something about having one less cannabis store in the community, I will.
okay, thank you. Alright, so that works for you, Mr. Bender?
Sure.
Okay, excellent. We move on to 10.3, which is the home-based business for gold jewelry, or just, oh yeah, no, that's correct. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bender regarding the report?
I'll move that council direct staff to initiate discretionary use application process.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that one.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Reese. Any further comments, questions? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. Move on to the last report in that, which is the home-based business for a registered massage therapist. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Bender on this one?
No, I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so motion by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor Hrdisky. Any further comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. Thanks, Robbie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we just need the motion into camera.
So move.
Okay, seconder. Okay, motion by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Reese. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. We go on the camera. Let's take a 5-minute recess and come back.
Alrighty.
Thanks,
Quick question,
Thanks, Connor. Thanks, Brianna. Thanks.
on some of our issue reports, I see District of Sycamores.
Where's
The title.
We are still streaming, just so everyone's aware.
Like if I go and click on any one of like fire extinguisher, here's
The total because the author was.
oh, it
in
comes
that
up, but it'll
district?
give me like on some of them. There was one here, municipal revenue sharing. But it would come up here on like the title, rather than declaration 7183 such and such, it gave me District of Sycamores.
Okay.
Authors.
So, okay, that's the author coming up, because when I originally put together these staff reports, I was working on the District of
And then
Sycamores.
recycle them.
So,
I changed
nobody
it on
would
a
see
couple
that.
versions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
we're still in the process of changing it. You'll notice that Cam's reports were different because
Right.
he forgot to use the new format.